Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Jaded Blossom's July release is now available, and they're also having their huge July celebration sale. Jaded Blossom only has 2 sales a year, so now is a great time to grab those items you've been eyeing. The sale runs from July 3rd through July 21st, 2024. And if you want to pause this video and go shopping, I do have a link in the description box below. Now here's a look at the new products for July 2024. There have been lots of requests to have gnomes with faces. So if that's something you're interested in, you will love the new release. There are 2 new Gnome Die sets. We have Gnome Dies Gnome Face add-on set number 1, and then there's Girl Gnome Face add-ons. Both of the sets include eyes, but you can also purchase the Gnome Face stamp set for a fun variety of different faces and expressions. Now the 2 new Gnome Die sets are just add-ons. You will still need the original girl and boy gnome. When you look at the new sets, you may notice they don't include the hands, the feet, hair, beard, but they do have the fun addition of ears for the gnomes. There's a new sentiment stamp set called Gnome Addict, and there are also outline dies. So many fun sentiments. If you're a gnome fan, you will love this set. How fun that one of the sentiments is Jaded Blossom Gnome Addict. A few other sentiments are gnomes are a healthy obsession, best gnomies, the voices in my head keep telling me to get more gnomes. Creating gnomes is my therapy, gnomies forever. There's one more item in the July release. This is Beach Chair Die. So now you can create a fun beach chair for your gnomes to sit in. Perfect for summer cards. So that's everything in the July release. And if you are interested, I do have links in the description box. And be sure to also check out the July celebration sale. I do have a couple of cards to share with you using the new items. I've already gone ahead and die cut out all of the pieces. For the beach chair, it'll be bright pink. I'm using some pattern paper from Simple Stories. It's their Color Vibe Brights collection. One side of the pattern paper is a solid and the opposite side has a tone-on-tone polka dot pattern. I cut out the very background of the chair using the solid pink, but for all the other pieces that will be visible on the chair, I'm using the pink polka dot tone-on-tone pattern. You could use any color for that background piece since all of it will be covered up, but I figured I may as well use some of the solid pink. I'll start by gluing the back of the chair first, then I'll add the 2 side pieces. I love how everything has that fun faux stitch detail. Next I'll add the hand rests, one on the right and one on the left. And I am picking up the chair, just making sure I get those die cut pieces all lined up straight. Then I'll add the final 2 pieces in the front. Jaded Blossom just keeps coming out with more and more fun items that work with the gnomes. They have vehicles to ride in, a motorcycle, there's a mushroom they can sit on top of. Love all the different options. So there is the beach chair all assembled, so cute. Now I'll assemble one of the girl gnomes using the new add-on set. I use white cardstock for that background piece and it will all be covered up and part of it will also be removed since she will not be wearing the traditional gnome hat. Instead, this gnome will be wearing the sun hat and that's included in the spring add-on gnome set. For the girl's dress, I used pattern paper from Doodlebug Designs' Seaside Summer Collection. I thought that would be perfect for a summery card. Now generally for the girl gnomes, I start with the face and then add the dress, but for this new style, it's better to add the dress first. There's also the little V area, and I use some of the skin tone cardstock. You could also use a solid cardstock and make it look like an undershirt. Before getting too far on the gnome assembly, I do want to stamp one of the new gnome faces. There are lots of fun options. I'm going with the eyes closed and the little side smile. To help make sure I get a good solid impression, I will be using my Mini Misty, and I'm also using Waffle Flowers Grip Mat. This is the size that fits perfectly inside the Mini Misty. Since there's not a lot of area on this small piece, it's hard to hold it in place using the magnet. So by using Waffle Flowers Grip Mat, I know when I place the die cut piece down, I know it'll stay in place with that tacky surface of the grip mat. I'll use Honeybee Stamps Intense Black ink, and I will ink up the stamp several times to get that nice solid impression. Now I'll adhere the face on the gnome. Next I'll add her sun hat, and I will trim off the extra white area of the traditional gnome hat. I'll put a little bit of glue on the back to hold those two pieces in place. And when adhering the hat, I'm trying to pull her ears forward since I want them visible. Now I'll add her hair, and I love that the new set has the little bangs area of the hair. This gnome will have some bright yellow blonde hair. I'll add the little bangs piece first. Next, I'll add her braids, and I'm trying to tuck them underneath so again her ears are visible. With the new ear option, I didn't want to hide them with her hair. Takes a little bit of maneuvering to get the braids in place. I will flip her over and hold all those die cut pieces down with some double-sided adhesive tape. I noticed some of the white cardstock was still showing behind one of the ears, so I am trying to remove that white cardstock piece. Now I'll tuck her second braid behind the ear, flip over the gnome, and hold that piece in place with some more double-sided adhesive tape. I'll also add a little bit of glue behind her ear so it's not sticking out. Next, I'll add her feet, and I am popping them up using foam dimension. I'll add the thin foam squares down first, then adhere her bare feet on top. And of course, she'll have bare feet since she's at the beach. Now I'll add her nose, and this is a new size nose. It's smaller than the original Gnome die set. They had to make it smaller so you could still fit the face on there. I don't want to pop it up with foam dimension, but I did put a scrap piece of cardstock underneath, just giving it a little more dimension. The gnome will be holding a starfish, and the starfish is from the Beach Gnome add-on set. I'll first attach her hands, then I'll flip it over, put thin foam dimension on the back, remove the release paper, and adhere the starfish in front of the gnome. And we're going to say this is a stuffed animal starfish. This little gnome would never harm a real starfish by holding it out of the water. I'll also be adding a sun die cut image, and this is from the Weather Gnome add-on set. The pattern paper I used for this sun is from Craft Consortium's Ink Drops Earth collection. And for the background of my card, I'm using Craft Consortium's Grunge Light Tones pattern paper. I cut out some sand using Jaded Blossom's Tropical Dies. There's one border piece that looks like a little sand area. I'll put glue on the back and adhere that piece at the bottom of the pattern paper panel. Then I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. Next, I'll add the bright pink beach chair, and I'll glue it down using Barely Art glue. I thought about popping it up, but instead I'll be popping up the gnome with foam dimension. I'll make sure to put enough glue on the back so all of the areas stay attached to the card. And I'll also place a large acrylic block on top for some added weight while the glue dries. I did let that sit for a few minutes. Next, I'll add the sun in the upper left-hand corner, and the very left side of the sun will go off of the card. I'll put glue on the back, adhere the sun down, and I'm going to let that sit for just a few minutes before I trim off the overhang. Now I'll flip over the gnome, put foam dimension on the back, and I'm putting a slightly thicker foam dimension behind her toes. Since her feet are already popped up, I need to add a thicker foam dimension there, otherwise her toes would sort of bend in toward the card. Now I'll remove the release paper and add the gnome on the fun bright pink beach chair. Next, I'll flip over the card, use my scissors, and trim off the overhang of the sun, so now it's flush on the left side of the card. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut out Jaded Blossom Gnome Addict. I had to use this sentiment, it's so fun. I used pink ink and stamped it on some white shimmer cardstock. And I really only had two different options where to add the sentiment, either the upper right hand corner or at the very bottom of the beach chair, and I decided to put it under the beach chair. I did add some sparkle to the sun using Scrapbook.com's clear glitter brush. I almost forgot to add bows at the end of her braids. I cut these out from some bright green cardstock, and I'll adhere those in place with just a tiny drop of glue. Using a white gel pen, I'll add some highlights on her sun hat and also the starfish, and one more highlight on the sun. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll add a few embellishment die cuts using Jaded Blossom's Embellishment Cluster die set. Pull out my box of already cut out die cut pieces, and I'm selecting the two smaller heart sizes. I used a variety of different specialty cardstock for all of the embellishment pieces. For this card, I'm using some silver holographic cardstock. I'll adhere the three hearts on the right side of the card. I kept changing my mind on the placement of the three hearts, but I ended up putting them exactly where I placed them the first time. I'll first add a small drop of Barely Art glue, pick up those tiny die cut pieces using Scrapbook.com's Craft Pro Pick tool, then press them in place. So there is my finished card. I love how this turned out. Fun, bright colors for summer. Now moving on to card number 2, and this card will feature the boy gnome. I'll start off by assembling him. I use white cardstock for that background piece, but just as the girl, all of those areas will be covered up. The skin tone cardstock I'm using for the boy is from P13's Skin Tone paper pad, and you can purchase this paper pad at Jaded Blossom. The skin tone cardstock I use for the girl is from Concord and 9th. It's the Nectar color. For this style of the boy gnome, you want to start with the face first. So I first attach that background of the face piece with the ears. Then I added the hat, and he's wearing the traditional gnome hat. Next I'll add the face that doesn't have the ears. Now I'll attach the beard, then the mustache, and now I can add the nose. With the boy gnome, a lot of his face is covered up by the beard and mustache, so it'll be a little harder to use some of the gnome faces, but you could definitely use some of the eyes. For this gnome, I decided to use the small circle eyes that are included on the die set. I'm also adding a little bit of the hair at the bottom of his hat. It's the same piece I use for the bangs on the girl gnome, and it's only included on the girl add-on set. Now I'll add those teeny tiny black circles for his eyes. I did use the Craft Pro Pick tool to pick up those tiny pieces. I also popped up his feet using some foam dimension, and I went with the naked feet again. There are shoe options, but I think the little naked feet on the gnomes is so cute. The gnome will be holding a cup of coffee. This image is included on the original boy gnome set. Use light purple cardstock for the mug, brown cardstock for the coffee. I'll attach both of his hands so he's holding the mug. Put foam dimension on the back and adhere the mug in front of the gnome. Using a white gel pen, I'll add some highlights on the gnome. And I made sure to give the gnome a soul, as my daughter would say, by adding the white inside each of his eyes. I'll also add a few highlights using the white gel pen on his hat, his feet, and also the mug. I've already assembled the background of my card. I did this several months ago. It was supposed to be for a Jaded Blossom card, and I decided not to use it, but I did save it. I knew it would come in handy one day. I ink blended the background, added a fun grassy hill using a border die from Jaded Blossom and some Doodlebug Design petite print pattern paper. I'll flip over my boy gnome, pop him up with foam dimension, remove the release paper, and add the gnome on the left side of the card. I've already stamped and cut out the sentiment. Yes, I really do need all these gnomes. I'll put glue on the back and adhere it in the upper right-hand corner. I've already assembled a dog image, and if you want to see how to assemble this dog, you can watch my Jaded Blossom video using their mini firefighter release. The dog image is part of the Gnome Firefighter add-on set. It was designed to be a Dalmatian, but you can easily turn it into a variety of dog breeds. I did pop up the dog with foam dimension and adhered him on the right side of the gnome. Now I'll add more of the paper embellishments from the Embellishment Cluster die set. This time I'm going with the stars, using the two smaller sizes, and I'm also using the silver mirror cardstock. I'll put 3 around the sentiment in the upper right hand corner and 2 on the left side of the gnome. I'll add a small drop of Barely Art glue, pick up the die cuts using the wax tip end of the Craft Pro Pick tool, then press them in place. I accidentally dropped one of the stars and it landed standing up. Luckily, I was still able to use it after I wiped off the glue. So there is my finished card, this time featuring the new boy gnome. Now here's another look at the 2 cards I made using Jaded Blossom's brand new July release. The gnomes now have the option of ears and faces. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links in the description box below. And don't forget, their July celebration sale is going on now through July 21st. Be sure to check it out and grab all those goodies you've been eyeing. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.